How about that?
Well, I think we should encourage exports of our food. The potential there is huge. But I'm a little bit worried of the manner, of the type of exports and the quality of exports. Just banging together heaps of yams and, you know, shipping them to China or wherever in their raw form is no big deal whatsoever. I believe those farmers are making only probably just 20% of what they could potentially make. If they studied very carefully the value chain of yam, process it, you know, either as glucose or as starch or as in the form to be eaten. I understand even the bark of the yam is very valuable. So we need to understand and study the value chain and begin to process and add value rather than just exporting these things in their raw forms. It's no big deal. But, you know, it catalyzes, it stimulates further production. If people know there's an outlet and they've tested the global markets, then the potential is that next year they're going to clear more land and expand.
So it might increase production, but then if there are security challenges yet to be addressed, because in some instances some might say that perhaps we could have increased production this year, but with this, you know, clashes that we're seeing between farmers and herdsmen, if it's not addressed as frontally as it ought to be, you know, the chances are high that it would still not be, nothing will still be working.
Very correct. I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. This is a major challenge, and you know, I tell myself that, look, if somebody wanted to destroy Nigeria, all they need to do is to study our food chain, to study the social structure of agrarian production in our country, and to know the sociology, the economic sociology of the peasant farmer, and then block the capacity of the peasant farmer to produce, undermine local social capital and the rest of it, set arm some militias, a lot of them from abroad, not even from this country, and set them into all the rural areas where, by the way, there's no government. Local government is supposed to take care of the rural areas, but there's no local government anymore. They've been swallowed up by the states. So there's no, I mean, in those days, you had a district officer, he was a judge, he was an administrator, he was an economist. Things worked. You know, right from colonial times, the district officer kept meticulous records. They studied, they took care of security and the rest of it. None of that exists. There's no presence of government in the rural areas. So it's a terra nullius, what the jurists will call a terra nullius. And in a terra nullius, anything goes. It is the rule of the strong against the weak. And that can only be the worst for food production and food security.
So whichever way we look at it, politics does have an effect. Political governance, that is, has an effect on you know, food production. I think that as it might be very difficult for a lot of Nigerians to appreciate, you know, the marginal drop in the price of inflation, even though it's welcome news that inflation seems to be on the steady decline, especially if it's not affecting food prices. That appreciation might not be there. But what precisely is happening? Why is inflation on the decline?
Well, you rightly said it's a decline of 0.5.
Yes.
That is very marginal. I recall that between 2007, 2006, 2012, inflation had been brought down to single digit. We managed to achieve that, and having an inflation rate hovering over 16% is still extremely high by any standards, you know. So we can say yes, some progress is being made, but I think Nigerians expect more. We need to wrestle down this monster to single digit, to less than 10%. That is what we need, because when we do that, we reduce poverty, because inflation is a tax on the poor, because they have fixed salaries, fixed wages. The rich have different income streams, and they have ability to transfer their assets into dollar assets and domiciliary accounts and the rest of it. And so, you know, it's a tax on the poor, and it discourages investments. It can lead to capital flight. It discourages capital importation and the rest of it. And so for growth and a stable macroeconomic environment to prevail, we need to be able to bring down inflation to single digit. In Europe, America, you never hear of these days of inflation over 3%. That's, you know, virtually a no-no. So we still have a very long way to go.
From what your knowledge of what we did in the past to try and bring, I still remember, I think it was during the time of Lamido Sanusi when, you know, there was that heavy battle to try and rein in inflation figures. And, you know, he constantly said that, you know, single digit was his target. And eventually, I think we were able to achieve that. What precisely did we do then that we are not doing now to try and bring back inflation to single digits?
Well, it is the primary responsibility of the Central Monetary Authority. That is the role of the central bank. In fact, if there's only one mandate